All. It is spring break, so I know we have quite a few people traveling, but we are glad that you are with us. We have a few people in because of spring break, and welcome. If you're not normally a part of Trenton Crossing, we are thankful that you're here. We hope you'd stop by our Welcome Center, leave us some information if you're so inclined, but at least pick up something from us. Take that with you. Hope that you'll be with us again. Encourage everyone when you come in to grab an order of worship every Sunday on the front. The order of worship on the back, a number of announcements. I won't go through all of those, but I will remind you just a few. Next week is Easter. We're going to have an Easter egg hunt. Be sure to look at the details about that immediately following service. Also, next Sunday night, we're having a Passover Seder reading and going through what is involved in a Passover observance. It's going to be a wonderful time. Historical, informational. Jeff Stockton will be leading us through that, and you'll see the connection between Passover and communion and Judaism and Christianity. And so that is next week. If you're interested in coming, there's a sign-up sheet on this yellow pad on this table right in the front corner. Also, if you notice on your announcements, there's a bridal shower for Madison Brown, Michael Mann. That's going to be on the 8th, but if you are interested in helping with that, everyone who is helping with that, there is a meeting in room G101, those who want to help with that shower. G101, right after we are dismissed. This morning, as we begin our time of worship, we're going to be singing a block of songs, lifting up God. The first song we're going to sing is Everlasting God, and some of those words are taken straight out of Scripture. We want to read some of those together, actually from the prophecy, from the prophet Isaiah, from chapter 40. And so if you will, let's stand for our reading and read the words that are bold and underlined as we come to them. From Isaiah chapter 40. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary. His understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They soar on wings like eagles. They run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Let's lift our voices in song. It is good to be back with you. I appreciate Jeff Shockley stepping in at somewhat late notice last week. I decided to take a vacation. My best friend, Jonathan Seaman, lifelong friend, we grew up together and born one day apart. He was preaching a meeting at the church where my dad was preaching when we were both born. And I decided to take advantage of that opportunity to go and hear him preach. I went on a vacation and heard preaching, even at night. How about that? Coincidentally, Carolina was playing Lipscomb the very same weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. So what can I say? We were able to go to that game together. Lipscomb did not win, but Carolina got, they were reminded the next game that they should not have beat the Bisons. What can I say? See this NCAA tournament, is that thing still going on? Yeah, okay. Next week is Easter, and I want to talk about the events of that weekend for today and next week as well. We don't know exactly when Easter was, except we know, well, it's around this time of year, and that's when the resurrection of Christ took place. There were a number of people who were involved in the events of the crucifixion of Christ, but right in the middle of it all was a man named Pilate. Now, we've sung this old song about Pilate. We're going to be singing another one as an invitation song. It's about Jesus standing before Pilate, and what will the answer be? Pilate was a man of real power. He was the governor. Now, there were a lot of steps leading up to the governorship. Some of it included military command. So Pilate had this experience behind him, but there came a day when he was confronted with Jesus, face to face with Jesus. And that's what I want to look at this morning. We're going to be using Matthew and Luke both as our accounts for our basic text this lesson, so you can turn to one, put a finger in the other, or figure out what you're going to do on your phone and your tablet to access both of those. But let me begin reading the first 5 verses of Luke 23. And the whole multitude of them arose and led him to Pilate. They began to accuse him, saying, "We found this fellow perverting the nation, forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ, a king." And Pilate asked him, saying, "Are you king of the Jews?" He answered and said, "It is as you say." Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the people, "I find no fault in this man." They were the more fierce, saying, "He stirs up all the people, teaching throughout all Judea, beginning from Galilee to this place." Now notice where Pilate started out on his journey with Jesus. You see it right there on the screen. He examines him, looks at him, figures the circumstance, and it's this: "I find no fault in this man." Nothing to see here. Move along. Not guilty of anything that's really my concern or Rome's concern. Find no fault in this man. That's a pretty strong statement. But as you know, the story did not stop there. And as we'll see, he was warned by his wife not to get involved with this man, but he didn't listen. The pressure was on. A large number of Jews had flooded into the city. The way they would do for a lot of these festivals that they celebrated through the year, but in particular for Passover. It was Pilate's responsibility as the governor and ruling over the Roman citizens to make sure that trouble was kept to a minimum, eliminated if possible. The Jews and the Romans, they didn't always get along, and you had this extra influx of people, and Pilate's in the middle of it all. Furthermore, there were some stories that were floating around about this time. There were stories about money from the temple treasury that had been taken out and was used to provide water to the Roman citizens. There was a slaughter that had happened in a Samaritan village, and the Romans were suspected behind that. And the Jews, they might compress the point if they wanted to and point the finger right at Pilate for not really maintaining the peace that he ought to. And you can bet that Pilate wants to hang on to his job. It's one thing to be elevated as governor, and there he is, but he also knows that you don't want to incur displeasure from the higher up people. That could bring with it some undesirable consequences. And so he wants to hold on to his governorship. He wants to hold on to his power. And there he is, confronted with Jesus and an angry mob over here. And he looks at Jesus and says, "I find no fault in this man." But the crowd is shouting. The crowd's starving. They're on the verge of getting out of control. What's he going to do? Well, he starts compromising with what he's going to do. And through the years, I think other people have used these very same lines of reasoning. Perhaps we have too. Look at what he did and perhaps see if you see yourself in it. If so, you might want to make some changes. But rather than standing up for what is right, Pilate started compromising. The first thing he said was this: "I'll let someone else deal with Jesus." Listen to verses 4 through 12 of Luke 23. Pilate said to the chief priests and to the people, "I find no fault in this man." That's where he starts. But they were the more fierce. They said, "He's stirring up all the people throughout all Judea, beginning from Galilee to this place." When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked if the man were a Galilean. As soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself was also in Jerusalem at the time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad, for he desired for a long time to see him, for he heard many things about him. He hoped to see some miracle done by him. Then he questioned him with many words. Jesus answered him nothing. The chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him, and Herod, with his men of war, treated him with contempt and mocked him, arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him back to Pilate. The same day, Pilate and Herod became mutual friends, for before they had been at enmity between themselves. Yeah, that's it. I'll let someone else deal with Jesus. And so Pilate sends Jesus to Herod. What Pilate is saying is, someone else can deal with Jesus, but not me. You know, some people have done that for a lifetime. This Jesus thing, not for me. You folks, you deal with him. You decide whether he's real, whether he's not, whether to follow his commands or not, but not for me. Everyone's going to be confronted with Jesus. He's out there. Christianity is out there. It's foolish to say there's no such thing as Christianity. Now, you can decide that Jesus wasn't real, and you can ridicule Christianity, but you've got to deal with that one way or another. Even historians say there was a man named Jesus, the one that we're talking about, and that he was a real person. You've got to decide what you're going to do. Some have just eliminated Jesus from their minds. They'll leave it to someone else. But a day is going to come when that decision cannot be put off. That was the case with Pilate. Then Herod sends him back. Having examined him in your presence, I find no fault in this. He says it again. I find no fault in this man concerning those things of which you accuse him. No, nor did Herod. For I sent you back to him. Indeed, nothing worthy of death has been done by him. I will therefore chastise and release him, for it was necessary for him to release to them one at the feast. They all cried out at once, away with this man. Release to us Barabbas. He had been thrown into prison for a certain insurrection made in the city, and for murder. Pilate, therefore, wishing to release Jesus, you see where he's coming from. He's struggling. I want to let him go. He spoke to them again, but they shouted, saying, crucify him, crucify him. And he said the third time, why? What evil has he done? I find no reason for death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. That's what I'll do. We'll punish him. I'll chastise him. I'll release him. In other words, I won't quite kill him. We're going to keep him alive. That way Pilate can sort of have it both ways. It's going to be severe on Jesus, but he does walk out of here. Could be sort of a bit like people who trot out Christ on special occasions. We're going to see a little bit more of this next week, especially across America and even the world. It's Easter Sunday, and you know all the jokes of the people. Welcome everybody, it's Easter, good to see you, you've really changed since last year, all that kind of thing. Sometimes special holidays mean something to people. I'll be here at Christmas, I'll be here at Easter, or special occasions. Funerals, someone passes away, want to make sure that a preacher preaches the funeral, although there's no connection at all. I understand that on one level. But what that does is it just sort of puts Christ in his place. He's great at Easter. He's great at Christmas. He's great on, I forget Christmas and Easter. I'll bring him out on Sunday mornings. I'm going to be here week in and week out, but how are we living our lives? I want to keep Jesus alive. Oh, sure. I want to be on a church roll. Sure. I want to be connected, identified with the church. And we started out this year talking about the importance of being here and assembling together with God's people. It's tremendously important. But that's a starting point. That's sort of a rally. That's an energizing time. Then we leave. How is it that we interact with our school friends on Tuesday? And the people we work with on Wednesday? And the people that we see in the store on Thursday? I went to a place of business just this past week, and just a routine kind of thing I was going through, and as I got halfway through it, they mentioned, oh yes, I know you because of, and they mentioned the name of someone here, and I thought, and I was reminded, they knew all along who I was. I was representing this church, know it or not. Not only that, I'm the preacher, we have different standards. I was out there, I was embarrassed because I didn't even have my tie. Whoops, oh well. Anyway, you know how that is. Let's never forget, we represent Christ wherever we find ourselves. We can't just put Christ in his place and pull him out on special occasions. It's got to be bigger than that. It's got to be bigger than wearing the name Christian. We've got to stand up for Jesus when the going gets tough, when we're under pressure, when we're under persecution. I hope we never be guilty of doing what Pilate did. But that was his suggestion. We'll keep him alive, but just barely. The crowd says, no, we're not going to let you off the hook. He comes back at them again. He comes back at them again a third time, and still they are chanting, and they want Jesus. Well, Pilate really starts to cave here. And it seems to me, I would say his next compromise is this. I'll ask the crowd what I should do with Jesus. And listen to Matthew 27. We'll turn over there for the remainder of the lesson. Verse 15. At the feast, the governor was accustomed to releasing to the multitude one prisoner whom they wished. They had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. Therefore, when they gathered together, Pilate said to them, whom do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ? for he knew that because of envy they had delivered him. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent to him, saying, have nothing to do with that just man, for I've suffered many things today in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitudes that they should ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor answered and said to them, which of the two do you want me to release to you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate said to them, what then shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ? They all said to him, let him be crucified. And the governor said, why? What evil has he done? But they cried out all the more, saying, let him be crucified. You see Pilate fighting against this every step of the way. What's he done? What's he done? He's not guilty. I don't find any fault. But you see what happened? Pilate says, all right, I'm going to release one prisoner to you. This guy's killed some of your folks. He's been involved in insurrection. I'll tell you what happened. Pilate lost his choice when he turned it over to the crowd. That's always the case. You see the choice that they made, and we know what it is. They preferred a murderer to the Messiah, and they preferred a man of violence to a man of love. But hey, they're the crowd. You never know which way the crowd's going to go. Sometimes the crowd goes to the good, sometimes to the bad, but they are the crowd, and sometimes they're all over the board. Following the crowd can so often lead us away from Jesus. How should I react in this circumstance? How should I live out my Christianity? I think I'll ask the culture at large what I should do as a Christian. And you'll say, well, the culture is sort of anti-Christian. Well, perhaps they are. I'll tell you what the culture, by and large, would say is, yeah, it's probably okay if you want to be a Christian. Just keep it to yourself, all right? Don't let me know. Don't say anything about it. You just hold on to your truth, and I'll hold on to my truth. Your truth is Jesus. My truth is something else. Let's not even talk about it. Just don't even show it. And Pilate says, you know what? I'll ask the crowd what I should do with Jesus. And that's where he completely lost it. That's where he cast his lot, and he let them make the call. And you know the call. Give us Barabbas. Crucify Jesus. Well, what's he done? Crucify Jesus. Now, I find no fault. Crucify Jesus. Well, he's not. Crucify Jesus. Pilate's reasoning doesn't matter anymore, because what he has done is turn it over to the crowd. You know, sometimes the crowd is unreasonable. Sometimes the crowd is illogical. Most of the times, the crowd could care less what the Bible says. We're Christians. We don't ask the crowd what we should do as Christians. What can I do that will make you like me? What can I do that will let you get along with me? Maybe 100 answers, but they're generally not coming out of this book. That's what Pilate did, and that led to an action that is so often most associated with Pilate. I call it a compromise, but a better word might be cave. Pilate completely gave in. You know what he did? He said, I'll wash my hands of Jesus. Calls real bold, you know. He brings it out. Listen to verse 24 of Luke 27. When Pilate saw that he could not prevail at all, but rather that a tumult was rising, that's what's guiding. I don't want things to get out of control. I want to hold on to my power. I don't care if an innocent man is killed. It's not about him. It's about me. And they are starting to get out of control. A tumult is rising. He took water. He washed his hands before the multitude. And he said, I'm innocent of the blood of this just person. One more time he gets it in there. The man is just. He's innocent. I'm innocent too. I'm innocent of the blood of this just person. You see to it. And all the people answered and said, his blood be on us and on our children. Then he released Barabbas to them. But when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Pilate brought out water. He washed his hands. You know where that came from? The Jews. It was a Jewish custom. Interesting enough. He's the Roman governor. The Jews are starting to rise up. And he engages in this Jewish custom. I'm clean. My hands are clean. Well, they may have been cleaner than they were because of the water, but he wasn't cleaning anything more than his hands. And what you do see in this story is this. Pilate did everything he could to set Jesus free, except the right thing. And that was to act on his own, stand up to the crowd, declare him innocent, and release him. He didn't have that in him. And there he is, washing his hands. This one isn't on me. It's on you. And the crowd says, yeah, it's on us. It's on both of them. And as we look at this story of Pilate and these compromises, and it ends up here with this water on his hands, I ask this question. What will you do with Jesus? What will you do? Will you let someone else deal with him? Will you keep him alive, but just barely, for nominal Christianity? You'd ask other people, what should I do? What should I do with Jesus? What do you think, crowd? What do you think, culture? What do you think, friends? How should I display my Christianity? Surely, not going to wash your hands of Jesus. I wouldn't expect that last one out of people who are here on Sunday morning, gathered together. But you know, when we do some of the first three, we're in some ways doing that fourth one as well. And the fact of the matter is, you can't really wash your hands of Jesus. You will deal with Jesus, one way or another, like it or not. And if not now, then later. Everyone who has ever lived or will ever live is going to have to deal with Jesus. Philippians, the 2nd chapter, verses 10 and 11, the Apostle Paul said, a day is coming in which every knee shall bow. Those in heaven, those on earth, those under the earth. And every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Every single person that rails at Jesus, every single person that belittles Christianity, every single person that says Jesus was just a good person, every single person who denies him, every person who follows something other than Christianity will, at some point, bow the knee and say Jesus is Lord. It's an astounding statement. Every one of us will deal with Jesus. I say, why not now? Why not right now, of our own free will? No one's forcing us. No one's coercing us. It's not that we're bowing the knee in front of Jehovah Almighty on the day of judgment. It's now, in this world. Yes, will we suffer because of it? Perhaps so. Persecution, ridicule, yes, it comes with the territory. But that's the call. And there's Pilate. I sympathize with Pilate, certainly on the level that he was in an extremely difficult position. But is that the call? Jesus says, follow me. Unless you find yourself in an extremely difficult position, and then just wash your hands. No, it's follow me regardless. That's the call. And sometimes it's extremely difficult. Jesus makes no bones about it. He says, you want to follow me, you've got to be willing to deny yourself, take up your cross, lay down your life, freely give yourself. You see that acted out even in the action of baptism. As a person gives their body, and it's lowered into the grave, into the water. A grave of water. And just like a grave, resurrected from the water. A person freely gives himself in that act. They're pulled from the water. They are resurrected to walk in a new life, to follow the Son of God, to follow the resurrected Christ. And much of the world is going to focus on that idea of resurrection a week from now. Whether we believe it or not, it's going to be out there. We talk about it every week. And the call is to join Christ in resurrection. If you've never been baptized with him, you can do that this very hour. If you need to ask for prayers, we can do that right now. If there's some kind of need that we can help to meet to help you better follow Jesus Christ, to do what you need to do with Jesus, come to the front, express that while we stand and sing together.